Hey, welcome everybody back to the show.
Bah,
Murph
bah,
Dirk,
bah, bah,
duke it out. How's everybody doing tonight?
bah, 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 bah.
We got people in here pretty early. Rick Saylor was like first. Couldn't believe it.
What's
I knew you were going to do that as soon as I saw it.
You know
What's
what?
up, everyone?
Has there been a Super Bowl commercial everyone talked about? I do miss that.
Oh, I'm
where
not
everyone
sure.
would talk about commercials.
Let's get on that in just a sec. But first, we're going to welcome our guest.
We've
got publishing Pete Simeti in the house.
Thanks for coming how's on. It going? Thanks for having
me. Doing great, man. Glad you're here. It's always good to talk to you. Good to have you on. We have a lot of fun with you. So thanks for coming back.
Good to be here. This is my fourth time,
I think so. Yeah.
Nice. One more and I get the jacket.
Well, I was going to say,
yeah, man.
Even if you've been here more than 5, I'm just going to keep saying 4 just so you don't get.
That's great. That's a good strategy. I was going to tell you to keep it quiet. Don't say anything.
Actually, I'm pretty sure this is your 3rd time now that I'm really thinking about it.
No, it's all good.
Keep me down, huh, Murph? All right.
We got Mo Biggs in the house, man. Thanks for coming. Look at this. Mo says, I applaud the Dukester strategy of buttering up the chat with the first comment because he knows we'll be relentlessly gatekept tonight. You probably will.
No, I have access to now hitting the chat. So, and you know me, I like to hit every one of them. I'm compelled to show the chat comments.
You know, you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying. You just shouldn't. But anyway. Okay, wait. I'm going to move you over here. How about this? We'll switch it up a little bit. How's that look? A little better.
Probably I should go on the bottom since I don't have an actual camera.
Okay. I'll make that happen. Let's do that.
Right.
All right. Let's interview Murph.
Top. Yeah,
What's going on, Murph?
How's it going?
What's this campaign all about, Murph?
Yeah. He don't know, man. He don't know.
Well, it depends which I'm campaigning on multiple levels on things every day of my life. So.
That's great. Oh, my gosh. Okay. Well, we've got a few things to talk about tonight, which is great. We've got your new campaign, which is going to be, we're going to get into most of the show. We're going to get into that. So if I can talk tonight, I got to get smooth here. And then we have a few other things we might chat about, after that or before that or whatever comes up. We'll just see where it goes. So we welcomed everybody. Dean's here. I just saw him. He said Derp and Merc.
Yeah, Derp and Merc. Come on. Dean, you're better than that. Like, at least be funny. You know, if there's going to be gigs, bring the comedy.
Oh, man. So, Pete, you've been busy, man. You've been really busy. I've been watching what you've been up to lately, and it's been a lot of fun to watch.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's a whirlwind. The start of this year, it's crazy. I can't even believe that we're halfway through February. Where did the time go?
I know. I can't believe that it's gone that fast. A month and, a month and a half.
COVID either changed the simulation or knocked the move. Ever since COVID, time is not the same.
Yeah,
it's
true.
I don't even feel like we've been a year from 2022. So I don't know what's going on.
It's crazy to think it's been 4 years? What was it, like March 2020?
Yep.
Yeah,
Holy
man.
crap.
Fast. That's how long I've been. Yeah, that's about how long I've been involved in all this indie comic stuff. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, okay. You got started around the COVID time?
Yep. Started lurking on channels and, figuring out who's doing what, and then getting into Twitter and started meeting people on there and hanging out doing draw streams and Yeah,
why did you start doing that? Why did you even go on the internet? Because, we always knew EVS.
Yeah, why'd you even start going on the internet? It was a bad move.
Oh, sometimes I think it is a bad move. Other times I'm like, okay, it's great.
No, I love the internet.
But does the internet love you back?
No. That answer is easy.
Good question.
But Murph, the reason why I went on, I'll tell you why I went on. I was sick. I think I was laying in bed and I had turned on YouTube and I started looking up comic stuff and I saw all kinds of people doing shows and I started watching those shows and they started talking about their campaigns and how they were, launching, on Indiegogo and all this stuff. And I was like, man, what is that? I've never heard of that. I don't know what's going on. And then I figured it out. So
did you miss the utter insanity then of 2017 and 2018 and parts of 2019?
Yes, I was out. I came in and I think it was 20 when I came in.
Lucky.
Yeah. The only thing
I heard it was a bad thing.
The only thing we would have known is I did watch EVS and your boy, what's his name? Zach? I'd watch both of them for reviews and stuff.
Okay.
But even then, though, I don't feel like I really knew about what EVS was doing outside of critiques about the comic industry and movie industry.
Yeah, there's so many people out there, and I didn't know who everybody was, and started listening to the Barton brothers, and then I just went from there. It just kind of dominoed, and it was good because then I started seeing what everybody was about, and I liked what they were talking about, and they were kind of saying the same thing I was saying, which was, the mainstream comics just were not doing it for us anymore.
Yeah.
So, which leads us to here, where we can talk to Pete, who's making great comics now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Why did you say now like he hasn't been making great comics?
Well, just started doing them now. The ones previously, man, pieces of crap. But now, great. Finally.
Leave it to Murph to just, wreck my whole statement. Just wreck it all.
I'm just saying, you should have just left the now out. It would have been perfect.
I just meant up to now, and now we can find good comics again. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
We're in a good spot. Like, there's a lot of good stuff coming out. I think there have been a lot of great comics. In fact, I do want to look at what Pete's doing, because I like King Cryptid, but I'm really interested in Horace Hoover.
Yeah, that's Fabrizio Aiello's book. That's a good book. Mm-hmm. He's a talented
It's looking
dude.
Great. And I've heard of Fabrizio before all this, but to see him doing this now, he was in mainstream for a while, right? Am I wrong?
Very wrong.
What was he doing before this?
I think he does like web design or something like that. But this is his first comic. Yeah.
I thought I saw his name in comics before, back.
Maybe someone else has a similar name. But no, this is his first ever book.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he's doing a bang up job, I'll just say. The art is looking fantastic.
Yeah, his art is terrific. It really is. He's so talented. And then we got Rob Geronimo's Blood Realm on the campaign too. Yeah. That's issue 14. So he's been with Alterna since 2018. And he's going to have his own campaign launching in like a month or so for 15 to 18. So he's going to continue out that story arc. It's like a 6-parter. Usually his story arcs are 3-parters. This one's going to be a 6-parter. And 13 kicked it off. That already came out. That was part 1. And then this is part 2. And then he's going to have the rest of it on his own campaign. And then Unit 44, 9, and 10. That series has been an ongoing at this point, and it's got like sci-fi, humor, horror kind of stuff going on. Really, really fun series. It started off as a 4-issue mini, and Wes Loker creates, writes, and letters that. Started off with Ed Jimenez doing the art, but now Alex Jovich has been doing the art since issue 5. Issue 7 had an artist by the name of Landon Franklin, kind of a guest spot to help out Alex, because he's just such a busy dude. He even does the art on King Cryptid on issue 3, issue 8, and then issue 11 for next year. So he is the artist, Alex Jovich, on Unit 44, 9, and 10 as well. And that's a really fun series. They're finding, I think, a sweet spot working between the two of them. I think they're getting really comfortable working together. and 9 and 10 are the best yet. So if anyone's really interested in that kind of a story, they kind of, it's 2 bumbling Area 51 agents, and they tackle various case files and meet creatures and aliens and all kinds of weird odds and ends. Issue 9. That
sounds fun.
Yeah. In issue 8, they got killed. And in issue 9, now they're in hell. And they got to escape hell.
Oh, that sounds fun, actually.
And there's an issue 10, so of course they get out of hell. But you got to read the issue to find out how. And issue 10, they encounter a werewolf, which is one of 3 individuals that they meet.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. And that's the eyes of the werewolf right there, right? On the campaign.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
That's nice.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I really like the eyes.
Yeah. It's great, man. I'm going to have to check this out because I hate to say it, but I have not backed one of your campaigns yet. And except for
missing out. You're missing out.
I know.
The best
I need to get up to it.
The best deal in comics, the most value for your dollar. These comics easily, in fact, I'm thinking I should start charging $5 or $6 an issue. These comics are so good. We're giving them away at $2 to $3 at this point.
You really are.
So you could go in there. Yeah, you could go in there and go check them out. And back them. We got all kinds of back issues on this campaign in particular. This is the first kind of Indiegogo campaign we've done where we have such an extensive amount of add-ons and back issues. In the past, we had the back issues that were only correlating to the new releases that were on the campaign. Mm-hmm. But now we've got all the other ones that we have on our site. So, because there's a bunch of people that just back on Indiegogo, they don't even go to our site. So they're missing out on all kinds of books that they just would never see because those books are already gone. They're done. The stories are done. So now we've got them listed on this campaign, and those back issues are selling. So I recommend checking out the back issues. Check out the add-ons. There's a bunch of great titles on there. And if you missed Blood Realm, if you missed Unit 44, Horace H. Hoover, if you missed any of those, we got the whole series bundle you could pick up too on the campaign. Cool. So you can get caught up.
Derek, do you remember in Ghostbusters where the bad guy at the end asks if they're a god and they say no, and then they're like, Ray, if someone asks you you're a god, you say yes? Derek, when we have a guest, even if you haven't bought their book, you say you bought their book twice.
Well, I mean, I felt guilty. I have bought King Cryptid.
Well,
so
I
bought
King Cryptid.
But
that's all that personally counts for me.
Yeah, but I'm liking the other books, and I think I want to jump in and get some alternate books.
Well, if you like King Cryptid, if you like the quality of storytelling within King Cryptid, you'll definitely enjoy these other titles as well. They're solid books, really, really good, and lots of great characters, really good designs on these, and interesting plots. So I really recommend people pick them up. I've said it before, I don't think on this show, but if I wasn't publishing these, I'd be buying them as a fan. So that's kind of first and foremost my scale of, do I want to publish this? And that these all check that box off for me. I'd be buying them if I wasn't publishing them.
That's cool. The thing I liked about King Cryptid, and it's probably true of most of all Alterna books, they were easy reads, and I like that. It's the old school comic feel that I like. I want to go through the episode. I want to, they're episodic, so it makes it feel nice. That's what I like.
Even Blood Realm, where it's got story arcs of 3 at a time. Rob does a really good job of telling the story within the issue and wrapping it up at the end, but there's kind of a cliffhanger that kicks off for the next issue. Mm-hmm. So even if you go into it, I mean, I don't know why you would want to start off with like part 3 of a 3-story arc. But if you do, if you're one of those weirdos, you could get into it and then go, oh, this was good enough. I want to check out part 1 and 2. So he really does a good job with the characterization, with the world development, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's great, man. I definitely want to do it. Sometimes reading a whole book, I know everybody wants everything in a graphic novel or whatever, and I know Murph, you like that.
Yes, I do.
But
I don't. Yeah.
But there's times where I don't. I really want it in the episode or the episodic format so that I can move on to something else.
I think that's because, and I don't know, I can't speak for Murph on this, but I really think it's because everything storytelling wise, even in the mainstream for the past 20 or so years, has really shifted towards these bigger. You would be lost if you got into reading issue 12 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You need to read that whole story arc. And kind of storytelling styles have really shifted towards telling things in that larger movie style format as opposed to like that TV episode style format, which comics did great with the serialized storytelling.
Yeah, you're right. TV shows don't even do that really anymore.
Yeah.
You can watch one episode.
It's a lost art.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, well, you get everything on Netflix and all the streaming services, so you get everything all at once. It's the whole season. Boom. And you can sit and watch as much as you want. But I hate that because it's like, I kind of like the anticipation, building up. I think it makes you like the show better because you're waiting. What's going to happen next?
Do you know whose fault it is?
Whose fault?
It's the X-Men animated series. Previously on the X-Men. Ever since then,
it's their fault.
No more episodic.
Oh man!
Right? Because Batman animated, you could watch per episode. Right?
X-Men you could too, though. X-Men you could too.
Yeah, you could.
There's a difference between things being hinged upon the previous story and being lost when you watch the current episode you're watching. Than there is between like this kind of style of storytelling where you can't really have a continuity. Like King Cryptid's got a continuity, and it's going to have a tremendous continuity by the time we get to like issue 50. But you're going to still be able to pick up that issue, get acquainted with who's good, who's bad, what the conflict is, what the setup is, what the situation is going on, what the motivations are. And that's all you really need. You could kind of watch almost anything and get involved like that. But a lot of storytelling nowadays has really become the equivalent of more like you turn on a movie a half hour into it. And you're like, what's going on? You've missed very important things that are not really going to be reestablished throughout, different than it was before. So you can kind of get acclimated here and there, but the storytelling, it's such a lost art with that. And,
it is.
And before, it really made it great because you could kind of see like enjoying along in the life of the characters. And they would develop organically, and the world would develop organically, and character development would take place in a way that really seemed to be just fluid. It seemed to make sense. It seemed to be like, okay, so that this character has gone through these things, and that's why they're now the way that they are. Whereas the bigger kind of format, if like you got to start at episode 1 to understand what's going on in episode 45. You can't just go into like episode 45 and be like, I'm picking up the series here. You have to really get caught up. And that's unfortunate. Some things, it's great when that happens, when they tell the story that way, it works. But there was such a huge shift in comics and TV and everything. And now we're seeing it in movies. Everything's like a universe. You have to go into certain things. And and then it's like homework. I just want to escape.
You miss character development too because they skip over a lot of things. They just expect you to get that these people like each other, or that they are in love with each other, or that they, just all these things that should be developing and you should see it organically happen. You don't get to.
Yeah, and you don't got to rehash an entire series of events all the time. You just got to do a couple little nods here and there, a couple little interactions, very small things to get the gist of who this character is. What is their relationship with this other character they're interacting with right now? You could tell, by the way, it's the same thing like right now. You could tell that Murph hates my guts. It's very easy. You don't have to watch the prior 3 episodes, you know? I'd say, hey, this is my 4th. He's like, I don't think so. You could be like, oh, man, this dude, you don't like him too much.
No, it has to do with us giving you things. And one, I don't like anybody. So
that's true. He doesn't like me at all.
I used to until I met Mo. Mo has let me see what really is in this world, and it's just being critical of everything.
No, see, it's more layered than that. See, Murph on the superficial level is behaving like he hates me, but he actually below the surface really likes and respects me. See, there's so many layers to it's nuanced. You know, it's just like good episodic storytelling, and you'll get acclimated really quickly. So it's the same kind of thing that occurs in anything that's told well. You don't have to have seen the previous episodes to understand it. And if anything, you want to go back and pick up the issues or see the episodes or whatever it is because you're enjoying the one right now. So you're like, oh, there's more to this. Like when I was a kid, and I'd be picking up issues that had like number 200 something on them, you know?
Yes.
If I liked that issue, I was excited about the fact that there were 200 something issues to go through, and that was all these extra stories that I could go and check out. I don't think I started anything at number 1 for the most part. Maybe like what the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider or something like that. Like, you know, but everything else I was starting off. It was deep into the series, so
you're right.
It
X-Men
didn't
was
intimidate
the
me.
first one I ever read, but that's because it was such a big thing, though, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I read I started reading X-Men, and I could follow it, but I did want to kind of go from the start. And when X-Men, when I got into it, they were doing other stuff like events with like New Mutants and and then when it turned to X-Force. And I was maybe 10, so I was confused. So I started going to the classic X-Men, $1, $2 per issue, and kind of read through that way, just because it was a little confusing with. I think that's what hurt comics too in the 90s. They were using too many things to.
Oh yeah, well they were printing their own money, you know.
There's a lot of gimmicks. Yeah.
Whatever they printed, they felt like it was gonna sell like crazy. Until one day when it didn't, and just like the momentum of like a train that has to just like stop, eventually all the other parts of the train start piling up on each other. So it's the same thing. Like, well, once the customers decide, you know what, I'm not buying caseloads of crap that's not worth the paper it's printed on. The same thing happened with the trading card industry too. The supply chain of that really took a while to crash into each other because retailers order out so far ahead. Publishers and manufacturers, they create their lines and plan that so far out ahead, sometimes a year in advance or so. But if the customer stops purchasing today, if all of a sudden within a month or two the customers decide, nope, not doing this anymore, then everything starts piling into each other, and it could take a year out of just like this horrible amount of stuff that's just not selling the way it used to, and they thought that it totally would. So
we're seeing that even
it really did that.
Now. Sorry, Pete.
Oh no, it's okay.
We're seeing that now with all the layoffs with video game companies, toy companies, movies, Disney, like all of these entertainment agencies laying off because customers aren't buying this shit. People don't like what they're selling.
Yeah, it's catching up to them, you know, and
about time.
it's a strange industry as it is with entertainment and things like that because of the fact that it's really subjective. But once you kind of start applying objective principles to it,
damn you, Mo,
I think that's when it becomes difficult.
Yeah, I think so too.
Once you start saying to people that, no, this is objectively good, and if you don't like it, there must be something wrong with you. You know, and that's kind of what we've seen for years at this point, where instead it's like, oh, if you don't like it, it's either, you know, it's not to your liking, you know, you can't account for taste, or maybe what happens more often than not, maybe we're just missing the mark. Maybe we're just not hitting it on the head in terms of either the content or the marketing or whatever it may be. You know, and you got to go back and figure things out. But if you think, well, objectively, everybody should like this because it's so great. You know, we checked off all the boxes, and you know, so that must mean then it's not our fault. It's the audience's fault. And that's kind of the same thing that happened with the comic bubble burst in the 90s. It's not the collector bubble. People should start calling it the publisher gimmick bubble burst.
Yeah. Right.
You know, blaming it on the collectors or the readers, the customers. At that point in time, it was like, what? Because they wised up? Like,
right.
It was only a matter of time.
I've heard different things. I've heard it was the collector thing. Then I've heard that it was because of the gimmicks, like you were saying, with different covers. Then I heard people say with Superman dying that it took the seriousness of comics away. What do you guys think? Do you think it's one of those, all of them, something completely different that we don't see?
I think it's a mix of things. I don't think you can always tie it to one thing. I think it's just the way things play out, because, you know, it's like what Pete's saying. People get wise to the gimmicks, you know. People start figuring it out and they go, what? This is what they're doing again? I'm getting sick of this. They're it's overkill. And that's what was going on in the 90s. There was a lot of gimmicks. And I don't think it stretched out as far as they wanted it to.
Oh, totally, yeah. I think it kind of all got... I think it all kicked off when the Image founders went and did their thing. And I think if they were never really in a situation to do that, I think if the situation played out differently and Image was never formed and they kept all of their own characters at Marvel, I mean, none of them worked at DC at that point at all. And Image was never formed, and Marvel just said, you know what? Yeah, we're going to really not bring back Epic, because they still had the Epic imprint line at that point, but we're going to really make sure to incorporate some of those philosophies into what we're doing. But they weren't in a situation corporate-wise to want to do that. Marvel was in a situation where they wanted to eventually sell their company. They were doing a lot of practices that put them in a weird position that the comics weren't coming first. But so the Image founders do what they do, and then all of a sudden you get the big two, especially at first, kind of scrambling for market share and coming up with what do we do with our characters? We got to make a big splash. True. You know, you get Wolverine's Adamantium ripped out. You get crossover event after crossover event. Yeah, you get all these different kind of things throughout the course of the 90s. I mean, Death of Superman's one of them too. Well, and Breaking Batman's back. You know, all these different things. These big, huge, attention-grabbing things. And especially Death of Superman, people were thinking, wow, this is going to, you know, he's going to stay dead. So this is going to be crazy. You know, and that wasn't part of the plan. And nope. And it didn't play out in the way that a lot of those people really thought that it did. Because especially the Batman '89 movie really kicked off big time in terms of, you know, the collector market for comics. So all of a sudden, everyone's looking and going, oh, my God, comics are worth so much money because they're pop culture icons at this point now more than ever. But not understanding a big part of the reason those things were valuable is because of scarcity and condition.
Right.
You know, a lot of those comics back in the day, even though they sold like crazy, they got pulped, they got destroyed. You know, you'd see these tales of people finding a pristine Action Comics #1 or something tucked away between a book in the attic for 60 years, you know, that kind of a thing. And but for the most part, these things weren't in great shape. People just didn't think to take care of them. Same thing with the trading cards. So that was a huge factor of it. Ironically, then all of a sudden everyone starts taking care of their comics, bagging and boarding and everything else you got to do. And then now you have these comics where condition really isn't a factor in the collector value, because practically all of them are mint condition, especially when you start leaving things like newsprint. Alterna Comics, they eat at themselves. So in 100 or so years, you know, they'll kind of start slightly deteriorating a bit. They're still going to outlive all the readers that have them as long as they kind of just take care of them. But the paper quality in and of itself, the ink, it's acidic. and it's like that with the other paper stocks too, but they're of a higher paper quality. So if you think about it, like chemically, their half-life is even longer, so they'll stay around even more in certain conditions. But all these different things play a part into it. And then storytelling wise, obviously it played out the way that it did.
Do you think if Image was successful, not that they weren't successful, but they definitely didn't hit a home run like people thought they were going to?
The problem is they hit a home run immediately, and then they really took their time walking around the bases.
Okay, that's a good point.
And even they'll admit that, at least, in terms of, wow, look, I just made what I would, on one issue, what I would have made in 2 years or something at Marvel, and they're all young guys for the most part.
But I just, imagine if Spawn was written as well as Batman. Like, if their characters did hit.
Oh, well, that's the thing. Yeah, if they had managed to stay on just as a consistent release schedule and keep the quality across the board, and everybody stuck together, and ego didn't really get in the way so much. If they did every single thing that was kind of the opposite of what did go down, man, they would have been the number one publisher. And it would have been a complete and total sea change, I think, across the entire comic industry, because the other publishers would have had no choice but to say, okay, we got to at least amp up a creator-owned line to start giving people, and give higher royalty percentages or some ownership cut or whatever it is to those that created characters, renegotiate deals with the people who created all of the classic characters that were now being incorporated in movies and video games and TV and merch, things that they didn't think really were going to happen when they had created them at the first time. It would have really been a whole thing, I think, a whole trickle-down effect, and maybe in some alternate universe there is. But the one that we live in, Image is still great. They're still they're doing as well as they possibly could.
They left a lot of money, but, you know what I mean? If they were
at the
really
time,
as successful as they could have been.
Yeah. Like if Image's founders, every one of them was Todd McFarlane, I think it might have gone over a bit better.
Well, if
just
they
a
were
second, I want to interrupt real quick, Murph.
Sorry.
Real quick before we get there. Hold on to your thought, because we're having a great conversation. But we just hit 250 subscribers.
Oh, I'm not feeding my cat till 300. Thanks, everyone. She's not getting fed till 300.
Leave it to Murph. It's never good enough.
It's a good attitude to have.
No, it's great. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you all so much.
She's dedicated too. She says she's fast until 300. She won't eat until she's hunger striking.
Well, that's commitment.
Yeah.
Especially for a cat.
Yeah.
No doubt. Hey, I want to say welcome to a few people on here too. We had Dr. Mask, Retro Elixir in the house.
Hell.
We have Justin. Welcome to both of you. We have Comics for Life. And I thought Spicer McElroy. So thank you guys for stopping in. It's good to see you all. I think they're all new to the show too.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, there's a lot of Alterna readers right here. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There we go.
And that's why Marvel was successful with solid storytelling, I think. Okay. Maybe they're following what
I agree. Saying. I think Marvel does better storytelling than DC. DC's always rebooting, man. It just, you gotta chill on that.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because they had a couple of decades ahead of Marvel's continuity. So, and they were kind of clinging a bit more to that classic interpretation of superheroes that were still around in like golden and silver age sort of times. And
that seems right. Yeah.
Because I really dug the post-crisis reboot, like the John Byrne Superman and stuff like that. Because I felt like it maintained the core elements of the characters, but also kind of modernized it to the time. Not necessarily for modern audiences, but it modernized the world and the kind of storytelling vibe that was there.
Well, Chris Claremont, I watched an interview where he was asked that question. Why doesn't Marvel do what DC does? And he believes that to do that for Marvel, you got to get rid of Stan Lee. You're getting rid of Stan Lee. You're getting rid of because he started Spider-Man. Well, I want to say King Cryptid because of what we're on, but what's his name with Stan Lee?
Ditko?
Huh?
Are you talking about Ditko?
No, who was with Stan Lee?
Oh, Jack Kirby.
Oh,
yeah,
Kirby.
Kirby.
Yeah,
the King. Yeah, like you get rid of them if you reboot it. And because Marvel has such a great, rich history of writers and illustrators and everything, Marvel doesn't want to lose that because you reboot, you lose that.
When did Claremont say this? Do you know about what year?
Oh, it would have been this year. I watch, there's a YouTube channel I watch, Near Mint Condition, that does collected editions and everything, and he interviews Claremont a lot. And he asked him that they were talking about that DC, and Claremont says that's why he thinks Marvel doesn't do it, because you don't want to get rid of all that history, like you really, which is a good point.
Well, it's odd that he would say that, only because they basically have, or all intents and purposes, have done that. They kind of have gotten rid of. They're not even a shadow of their former selves. They're just like, it's like they just took out all their skin, and now they're parading around in a skin suit, and that's what the characters are kind of like. I'm kind of surprised that, unless maybe he's not really keeping up with a lot of it, but I kind of thought he was.
Well, I think he means like Uncle Ben still died. Like those stories still are in Spider-Man's history. You know what I mean? Like he still lost Gwen Stacy. You still had the Phoenix Saga. It's not like they've been replaced.
But at the same point, I mean, like Bruce Wayne's parents still got murdered in an alley, and Superman's planet still blew up. So like all these like character defining moments are essentially still there, but the core defining elements of the characterization has really been put through the ringer a lot over the years, and especially the continuity of things. But I think that's kind of what happens when you have all this like this extra fluff. Like you don't need to
secretly lesbian. That's hilarious.
You don't need to. I think, and even when I was a kid reading the books, I was like, why they don't need to have all these different lines for the characters. Why don't you just kind of keep to the storytelling, the episodic nature of it, which a lot of them were still at the time, and then just put out twice as many of that book. So let's say Batman and Detective Comics. So the Detective, that's probably the one that, for me anyway, always felt like the most defined. You have Detective Comics being more kind of grounded stories, and you had the Batman story being more about the supervillains. Maybe just don't do any of the other Batman books. Maybe just double the amount of those books that you put out, and just have those creative teams that would have worked on those other titles, have them instead work on the doubled up Batman and doubled up Detective Comics and so on and so forth. Like instead of all the Spider-Man books with all the Spider-Man creative teams, those always felt like, I don't know, I could never really pinpoint a feel to those titles. Amazing, Spectacular, Web, and Adjectiveless. Adjectiveless kind of felt a little different when McFarlane first started it. It felt darker and older.
Yes.
But then it eventually didn't.
You were afraid of the villains. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like maybe just go with Amazing, or maybe just stick to two of them and double or triple the output, and have those different creative teams come on there and tell stories, and just have the editorial taking control of like, these are the stories that we tell, and that's how it is, and you keep the continuity in line. It would have been way easier to do. But especially at this point now, there's like so many miniseries. There's tons of different things that don't matter.
Yeah, there's like 12 Batman comics.
And there's like sequence of events that play out where you're like, there's no way that this character is here, there, over there. Like Death of Superman, let's say, right? I was always, as a kid, I'm like, so you all show up for his funeral, but none of you were there to help him kick this thing's butt. It's just like maybe that's 6 what I thought. Like B-list Justice Leaguers.
Yeah, it is weird.
Everyone else too busy.
Yeah, he fights all these B-listers. You're right, and then Superman, and that is weird. Like,
it's like, what?
Oh man. So Comics for Life says oversaturation of their properties is always an issue for continuity's sake.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. People have asked me about King Cryptid, and they're like, you're going to have a spin-off eventually if certain characters really take off. Like, people are already wanting to see spin-offs of certain characters. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to make more King Cryptid issues. And some of them will probably feature a character within the King Cryptid universe more in that issue. then King Cryptid would be in it. I kind of call back to like Batman the Animated Series, which is ironic because the animated shows in the 90s did episodic storytelling so well at the same time that the comics were not doing them so well.
Yeah.
And, there's a couple episodes, especially of Batman Animated Series, that were some of my favorites, in which like Batman is kind of just a storytelling device for the rest of the story to revolve around him. He's just the thing that ties it together. He's barely really there. And everything else gets a chance to develop, whether it was the villain or some other hero or whatever.
You're right. He's there.
Remember that with Clayface?
You're watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember they did that with Clayface. It was kind of a mystery, I think. And then they built that around how Clayface came to be and the chemicals he had to take and the makeup. And but Batman was only in it for a short minute. They were really like focusing on him and his trailer and what he was doing with his makeup and you really get more of the pathos of those characters, and you have to do that to flesh them out properly. Otherwise, they're all one-dimensional. Yeah, I loved it.
But like the Mr. Freeze story, that was, Batman's just kind of piecing a couple different things together to let the plot play out. But the development of the character, that had nothing to do with Batman. Every single episode, for the most part, Batman, his character arc stays even. He is like the sun, and the whole solar system of characters revolves around him. He doesn't really change that much, but he doesn't need to really change that much. He's well established, and his personality is what it is. And if anything, that's what allows the audience to trust in his perspective and what he's going through and what he's up against, where everything else may change. Even Robin changes over the course of time. A lot of other characters change, but Batman is relatively the same character throughout. And King Cryptid, I tell the story basically the same way too, where his character arc is more or less there. I'll have a little more fun with it because he's an old character, so he's like 500 something years old, so I can go and do flashback stories so we can kind of see more character development before we see present day King Cryptid. But those things are kind of few and far between, because I also think you really could have too much of a good thing. So sometimes people are like, I really like the action, in this issue, can you put more like that throughout the series? And the thing is that you got to know sometimes that the roller coaster ride is what counts, and that's what ends up making people love it. If everything was the same thing, even if everything's amped up and it's action the whole time, eventually that becomes monotonous. Yep. So you really got to have that flow.
That's true. Well, Pete, I wanted to talk to you about a couple things because you put out a tweet that I really liked, and you always seem to do that. I always catch on to some of your tweets that you put out, and I just found it kind of inspiring for me because I've been on this whole, kick about taking criticism and dealing with criticism as an artist and as a creator.
You suck, like Derek.
And yes. And see what I mean? Got to deal with Murph 100% of the time. So, but I like what you just recently said, and I wanted to share it if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see.
Boom. You don't have it ready? This is why you
did
suck.
Have it ready.
This is why you suck, Derek.
But then we started talking and stuff. Okay, anyway, here it is.
Yeah.
Is it on there? Yeah, it's on there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it says it's always interesting to hear feedback on books or series, what some really love, what others might really hate. As a creator, it's necessary to take a step back and see the bigger picture, evaluating based on overall feedback as opposed to isolated instances of praise and criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And that really stuck with me was you don't focus on one person saying something about you, whether it's good or bad. You should look at the whole thing,
Yeah.
What's everybody saying overall? And that stuck with me really good because I think as creators, we have a tendency to just kind of, we hear a few things and we're like, oh man, they really loved it. So that's awesome. And then we get hyped up. Or if somebody hates it, we just keep hearing that over and over in our head,
I feel like you could do one of the two extremes where you think your shit don't ever smell, or you never are able to appreciate your own stuff because you're always chopping at it yourself.
Yeah, it's true. I am, I do find myself to be overly sensitive a little bit, and I know these shortcomings about myself, so I've really had to, get some thick skin, especially being on the internet, because you really have to take it, you really have to listen, and you have to, well, you don't get to choose how somebody's going to hand it to you.
Yeah,
no, the way I feel.
100%. Yeah, and it's a funny thing because I think everyone, for the most part, starting off, it's you're always in that mindset of you kind of live and die with the praise and the criticism. Someone loves it today, you're on cloud 9. Someone hates it today, oh, you just want to quit.
Yes.
Nothing you do is good. Right. But the thing is that eventually, the more you do this, and the more you do anything, really, you really start learning that a big reason why you do it is because you hopefully enjoy doing it. It's because you do it for you. Right. And that's first and foremost. So it starts with this selfish desire to create and make something, and you put it out into the world, and then you start realizing, oh man, if I'm going to make something out of my selfishness, in a good, positive way, expressing yourself, and now I'm expecting people to interact with it and experience it, they're going to have their own opinions and experiences too. So you start to quickly learn, I really have to kind of put them into consideration as well. So now all of a sudden you go into your storytelling, your creating process, whatever it may be. You have to think about your audience. You have to think about what it is that maybe they'll enjoy, and you do something hopefully from a place of positivity that you're enjoying too. You're not just doing this because your audience wants to do this. Because eventually, like I said, you keep doing stuff like that. People at first think like, oh yeah, no, that's the right way to do it. You want to give everything to the audience that they want. But eventually what happens is that the stuff that they want from you is the surprise. It's the stuff that they don't really realize yet that they do want, which only comes from you deciding, I want to tell this today. I haven't really, this will be fun. I think people might enjoy it because they haven't really seen this yet from me. At the very least, you have to think from me. Because, they might have seen it before with something else, something similar, but they haven't seen that from you yet. And if you're doing it in a genuine way, that's the thing that makes them go, oh, wow, I didn't think that you were capable of doing that. And the more that you're able to do something like that, the more you keep them on their toes, and the more interested they could get, and the less bored they get of your story and your character, because there's possibilities there. So that's what kind of keeps people engaged. But I think when people start doing like the fan service thing, it's actually thinking they're respecting the fan. It's actually that they're not respecting themselves and they're not respecting the fan. So people often they end up getting in this weird spot where that's kind of what happens, and it's a tricky situation. But you really have to determine, look, I have to do this because this is this kind of story I want to tell. This is the kind of character that I'm creating. This is the kind of thing that I'm doing. And I'm listening and taking a step back and looking at the overall. Now, if everybody all of a sudden starts telling you, look, your pacing is off, this character design is bad, all these various elements just don't work, whatever it is, and you'll start hearing them, then you really have to look at that and go, okay, what can I do to improve this and figure out a way to make it better? But people, it's like any way the wind blows sort of thing with some creators, because just your head's on a swivel, and someone likes it, oh great, someone hates it, oh no, and it's like you're over and over again on this, and you're gonna drive yourself nuts.
And it's easy to get into. I feel like the internet makes it so much easier to listen to those people, because that's what we do. I feel like any social media blows that out of proportion every time. Somebody who's going to say something to you, whether it's good or bad, social media just makes it that much worse, and I don't know all the ins and outs of why that is necessarily, but I just think it does, and it makes it more dramatic.
I think we're not supposed to handle things on this level. This is kind of like, this is kind of like it's almost like flirting with like godlike ability in terms of omniscience. When you get to be like that fly on the wall at everybody's house, And all of a sudden,
kind of true.
You're hearing everything and seeing everything, and you're just like, this is too much.
Yeah.
And most of it is outside of your grasp. So you're going to feel completely powerless and like you can't control anything. And the more that you can't control and feel you can't control, the more you spiral out. So if you're constantly being over stimulated by this kind of interaction, you're going to be lost in it, and a lot of people are going to be completely overwhelmed. It's like a high anxiety situation because we're not supposed to constantly be seeing every single damn thing that's going on in the world. We're supposed to really be only knowing what is around us for the most part.
Yeah, right.
Pete, you just made a great story for Superman. With him being able to hear everything, he can't save everyone. That would be a perfect way, because they have a hard time of making Superman relevant.
There's a story that's like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a couple decades ago. And
now it's even more relevant, like what you're saying.
I did a short story like that, and it came out on a Wednesday. It was featured in the first issue, and then it was also featured, I think, in the If anthology in 2016 about this superhero that has these powers. He's got like this crazy hearing, super speed, yada yada, the whole tilt, like an analog for Superman. And one day his powers go on the fritz, and he goes completely nuts from it. He has to go into outer space where he can't see, hear anything and get away from it. And then when he's in space, he passes out and falls back to Earth. And then the next thing that we see is that he's emaciated, he's in really rough shape, he's in an asylum, and he's getting therapy. And essentially, the therapist is like, what happened? Can we go over it again? And he's like, do I really have to? And she's like, yeah, this is to help you heal. So he talks about his experience and what he saw, because at first you don't really get what's driving him nuts. So he talks about the fact that, you just see his reaction to him just losing it, like his powers are, so then you see him talking about it, and he's essentially talking about all the horrible things in the world that he's just powerless to stop, and he just can't handle it. His powers, the amount of bad going on, it's just too much. And now in the start of the story, he essentially saves the life of this mother and her child from a robber. They pulls a gun, he stops the bullet, that kind of a thing. And at the end of it, what happens is that the therapist gives him this letter, and the letter is from the child, and pretty much is just saying thank you. So it's just basically reminding him that this is why you do what you do. There's a lot of bad in the world, sure, but it's important to continue doing good because it does matter.
Fight the good fight. Yep, that's great. I like that. I mean, it is a good premise for the idea, but I agree. We see too much at once. And it's a lot to take in, and to process it's too much. No, he did not. Just rubbing the eye a little bit. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
just the room gets a little dusty.
No, but really, it's a great idea, but with social media, man, it's everything just gets amped up to be such a big deal, and I'm like, wait a minute. And, we see the drama come up and everything else, but I think criticism is definitely one of the harder ones because it hits you personally. So, it's easy to go off the deep end with it, whichever way, either on the positive side or, on the negative side.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to criticism especially, I think it's really important for people to not just take a step back, but also look at it objectively as criticism, even though it's subjective. This is someone's preference that they're disguising it in an opinion, and in an opinion sometimes of authority. In reality, there is no authority. I don't care who you are.
Mo? Mo's got no authority. Suck it, Mo.
Yeah, so even me as a publisher, if I'm like, well, this, that, and the other thing, and that's why I'm not going to publish it. Now, that's just my preference. That's just me stating it. I don't have an authority over you to make those changes or to tell you that you shouldn't go through with your story. That's just me saying these are the reasons why it doesn't work for me, or that I don't think it would work for others. Is that true? I have no idea. It's only true to what my perception is. So when people come along and then they kind of let someone else define their reality for them, now you're going down a whole other rabbit hole. You don't do that.
You're getting away from what you love.
Exactly. You know? Now, you could take something from every form of criticism, no matter how ridiculous it is. Even if someone's like, you suck, sure. You're the worst I've ever seen. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, that's someone putting their opinion out there, and that's how it is. And does it feel good sometimes? No, it doesn't feel good. But right. It's the same thing as when someone then comes along, though, and goes, I don't know what it is about your work, but it's the greatest thing ever. I've never seen anything better than it. You're incredible. You know, and now if you're going to take that and go, oh, yes, I'm incredible. If you're going to take that and run with it, well, you know, that is something you shouldn't do either. So you have to let people like what they like, don't like what they don't like, and just keep doing what it is that you're doing and learn from those around you, learn from whoever is saying something to you about what they like. If anything, don't look at it as like, oh, this individual is speaking for the group. And some people do like to do that. They like to go, we, you know, we this, we that, you know, whatever. And it's just them saying they like this kind of scene more. They like the way this is more than that, you know? So that's the thing that's funny to me, is because of the fact that people come along and they say certain things that they really love. And then other times, and then you see it the more you do it. I'm like, wow, that's funny because these people really love that about it. But then this person really hates that about it. You know, so what do? Change it? Well, now you just alienated the people who loved it to try to appease the person who hates it. And, you know, so that's why it's really important to take stock of like, well, what is it that you really care about? And you have to really define that for yourself.
Yeah. I agree. That's a great way to look at it.
There. Would you recycle that story for King Cryptid or a new character you created?
Maybe in some capacity, you know, but I wouldn't bring that character in necessarily because he was such an analog for that was kind of like a Superman story I wanted to tell if I ever did get picked up by DC one day, and I abandoned that years before even publishing that story, but I had wanted Batman to be visiting him in Arkham. And I wanted it to play out where Batman was going to try to figure out what was going on and how did his powers get so out of whack, and that he finds out that someone did something to Superman. But that would have been like a little fun thing to tell if I ever did work for them. But I was like, nope, never gonna. Whether or not they'd even want me to at this point, I just wouldn't. It's just not where I'm going with things. I'd rather stick to what I'm doing.
What was it going to be? Like, did Superman do cocaine? Is that like what happened? And the senses just went...
No, not that.
Okay.
Not that.
Okay.
You know, something more akin to actually the world and the characters.
So just some type of colored rock would make Superman's senses go out of control, right? Like a...
Yeah, something along those lines. You know, there's always different enemies out to get him and out to cripple him in some way, shape, or form. Take advantage of the situation, that kind of a thing. But it would be up to Batman in that instance to figure that out, and Superman being incredibly vulnerable at that point.
Yeah, I don't feel like we get a lot of Midas touch stories.
No, and we don't get a lot of simplicity in the story either. And I like how simplistic that story sounded, because you can do so much with it, and it lets it breathe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel
it's
like
about
a lot of the
it's about character and personality and playing up those elements. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times now you can't feel that. Kevin and I were talking about a movie last week. It was called Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. I don't know if you've seen that or not. It's got Jake Gyllenhaal.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's a good watch. It's a good movie, but the characterization he was talking about, man, I loved it, you know. And I thought, well,
I really liked
it.
I
think it's
Derek
good.
Ruined it for me.
I wasn't trying to ruin it, but
no, but you made a good point, and it did make me look at it differently. Like it.
Yeah, so the point I made was, you know, it's about these two characters, and they get in this situation that one of them has to save the other one, and in the midst of that, you know, they're supposedly forming these bonds, right? Because they're in a survival situation, but you don't get the sense that they're forming the bonds because you don't see them forming any bonds at all. In fact, Jake Gyllenhaal's character doesn't even like the other guy that much, and he's kind of just asserting his authority over him all the time. They even show a scene where he's supposed to be building his trust, and you get a sense that he's kind of getting trust out of the guy, but he doesn't ever emote that in any way.
There isn't like a pivotal scene where someone has to save the other person's life, and then they start realizing, like, oh crap.
He saves their life, but there's no realization until they're split up again and they're in separate places. And then he's like, I am compelled to save this guy. So he saved my butt. Now I have to save his butt.
Yeah, it's a guilt thing, not like a relationship.
It's more guilt. Like, I can't let him be there. I have to do it because he did it for me. And I'm going, okay, but there's no real bond that was built in that movie. So I can't attach myself to their friendship or their brotherhood or whatever you would want to call that.
And because the movie made it worse, because he even said, I can't sleep because of it. And so it's like, then it's even almost like a selfish thing. Like, I'm not going to have peace till I do it. And
I can't find peace. And I was like, that's not great. Where's the love for this guy? Like, he's not showing love. He's just showing that I have to do it because the guy saved me, and I'll feel like shit if he don't.
Yeah,
like if I don't do it. And I guess you can tell a story like that, but it didn't make me feel like there was anything, like, what was his motivation for that other than guilt?
And Pete, they did it because they're in a bunch of situations, and you never know if you're going to trust the other one. But I think to get that scenes of not knowing what's going to happen, they sacrifice the relationship to do that, which I think Derek's right. They could have done both without sacrificing the one.
Yeah. They could have just shown a scene like you were talking, Pete, where once he does this, you see these bonds form where they have a friendship or camaraderie just for a split second, or they an understanding that you get. And it wasn't really like that from what I saw.
Yeah, I feel like movies and all kinds of storytelling used to have moments like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. And they skipped right over it.
Yeah. It's like they pull too many emotional punches nowadays. I find everything is too cerebral. Everything is too clever. Everything is too about thinking. It's too from the head and not enough from the heart.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I feel like stuff doesn't resonate as much with people anymore because things from the head, when you're thinking and you're involved with it, it's entertaining. That's how you get certain elements where you can have like the subversion that works, and you can have a twist, and you can have all these different things take place. But if there's no heart there, if you never made a connection with what the characters were going through to begin with, then everything just feels cold. And it just feels like you have characters that are doing these things because why? Because I wrote it to be that way.
Yeah, right.
Because I wrote it. That's
I didn't get the sense that he was going to lose somebody that mattered to him. And I think that's where I wanted the story to go. But that's not where what they gave us. So I don't know. Maybe that was
not a bad movie, but Derek's right. It would have made it way better. Like you would,
yeah, because you care for the characters at that point. Because you attach yourself to the main character, and you're like, what would I do if I had somebody do that for me? I would be attached to that guy and want to save him because he's
exactly
that's what we went through together.
That's why I think. I mean, I think you're breaking it down too in terms of why storytelling is so weird now. When everything turns into like representation and whatever else.
Yeah.
Because with a story, you can't help but live vicariously through these characters that are experiencing these things. So representation or not, and superficial, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's what are they going through. Yeah, that's when you make the connection.
It's not like the fan base is like, we want Republican stories. No, we don't. I don't care if someone's conservative or they're this because they're a white straight male. That's a boring story too. This person does this because they're a white male. You know what I mean? We don't want politics at all. It takes away.
Yeah, it's more about the personality of the character, their motivations, what are they trying to accomplish and achieve, what's in their way, and every single character needs to have that defined for them.
And to me, it goes back to those universal, the universal things we all love. You don't have to show a love story. You can show a love for something or a person, like a brotherhood. that's deeply understood by a lot of people. And that universal story can be told over and over and over again in many different ways. So
you know, Mo's going to hit you on what you just said.
He's had many chances.
So a while back when the Last of Us TV show was on,
oh gosh,
I didn't watch it, but well, he's got to know because he would have got a lot more jokes.
Does he have to know?
Yes, he's got to know. He's got to know.
I didn't watch the show. Does it help that I didn't watch, or does
it helps. It doesn't. You don't need to. So I didn't watch it, and people in the chat were talking about it, and they said the third episode was very woke, and Derek disagreed, and I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. And basically, the third episode is you get these two new characters that aren't main characters. They're both gay, and they both meet at the end of the world, have a relationship, they have sex, and all this, and then they basically both die, and that's really the story of the whole episode. And it's like, it is very woke because it didn't do anything for anything but just having that as representation. So ever since then, there's been gay jokes that Derek loves it because of Bill and Frank right? And Bill and Frank. I always want to say Bill and Ted. Bill and Frank love that Derek loves gay.
Oh my gosh!
Men and things.
I get roasted, Pete. Absolutely roasted every show.
Because you just was like, you could have love for a person or brotherly love. I was like, oh, I was going to say something about that. It's coming.
Oh, he's already said stuff. If you scroll back up
You've
the
been
chat,
highlighting just basically Mo, though. You've really
he's about the only one.
Rest of the chat.
No, I've been showing a bunch of people. I showed Justin's tweet just a little bit ago. I showed Comic for Life. So there you go. Now, see, here's Mo. Bill and Frank were wild stallions in their own way.
Now, does that particular episode, or do those characters have an impact on the larger story at all?
Well, I guess two of the characters would visit them every now and again, and so you're seeing all of that, and so when they go, they're both dead. And I don't know. I didn't watch it after that because I thought it was terribly written. So I was like, I'm out of this show. Did it have an impact on the story, Derek?
I think it had an impact at the beginning. At the end, no. But at the beginning, it got them moving. Like they were the reason why they got out and got to the next point. Does that make sense? So they had this place they had to be where they lived, and they weren't allowed to leave. And because they met these guys who supplied them with, all kinds of supplies, guns and things like that, they could actually move and scavenge and get things in different places.
But that was only in the past. Once they went there and they were dead, that didn't mean anything to the rest of the story.
It didn't mean anything after that. Right.
Yeah.
How did they die? Was it like a heroic death?
No. One of them died from cancer, and then the other one shot himself after he died, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do take a break from the plot to follow the romance. That's true. They do.
I do wonder sometimes if people writing fiction realize they can create whatever they want. So you can augment situations in reality. This isn't a documentary. Yes. This isn't nonfiction. This is how these events played out. We have to stay true to it. Which is funny because even those kind of stories still take a slight license or more sometime.
That's a great quote, though. These writers, they can do whatever they want. They forget that.
Yeah, so if their relationship, so if I was to do that within the narrative of the story, and you could have it play out where, at least maybe one of them dies a heroic death in kind of a self-sacrificing kind of a way for the person they love or for the group or whatever it was. Not just that the relationship or their character or whatever it is, it's dwindled down to their sexuality or whatever kind of superficial trait that you think would be their primary trait. Like that, I find that's a really weird thing nowadays with a lot of storytelling, is the idea of take the superficial trait, whatever it may be, gender, race, sexuality, etc., and then dwindle that to that is their defining trait. They don't, not a personality trait, not a moment within their life, nothing that, that builds or any kind of resonance for them as individuals and as people. But they're all caricatures, and they're all, very, very loose. I can't even say archetype, but I guess, that's kind of what they're building. They're building like these stereotype archetypes and revolving character interaction through that lens. And I think that doing that is, and then to frame it that it's some kind of representation is even stranger. I think a lot of that's like a distraction play, to be honest, where it's like, oh, look, you're not going to get representation in the real world where it matters, but hey, look, representation in the fictional world, and it's all horseshit, so enjoy. And it's it's just like, a kind of a quelling of the masses of like, no, you totally matter. Look at this show. It's on HBO, like you're represented. And it's like, but what about like throughout the rest of life that matters? What about like, jobs and bills and the way that the rights are displayed in various countries around the world or, and then that kind of turns into like, well, hey, now you hate the government, you traitor? So if you bring that up, all of a sudden it turns into a weird kind of, you swerve one way. So it kind of becomes a weird thing. And then if anything, sometimes the narrative is pushed fictionally that you don't have rights and you don't have this and you don't have that to kind of brainwash you that you don't, when in fact you actually do. So then it's one of these other things to kind of relive trauma over and over again fictionally. And keep you perpetually feeling like you're a victim when you're not a victim. And if anything, this individual who's portraying that you, as because they represent you, are a victim, they got craft services on that set, and they got paid six figures, and they have a nice, wonderful home, and but you're oppressed. Just remember that. It's like it's a very, very strange system.
I thought it was weird too about the whole representation thing. When you think of like Ninja Turtles, I never thought like I was a turtle, or even like basketball. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna like Larry Bird because I liked Michael Jordan. I liked Charles Barkley. I had zero in common with them. I wasn't 6'7", good at basketball. I could barely walk good. So
they kind of want everyone to be in like a fixed mindset, as opposed to a growth mindset where the harder you work, the more you apply yourself, you can achieve to your fullest potential. And everyone's got a different potential that they can achieve at their fullest. But
they're just doomed.
If you're a fixed mindset, you all of a sudden you are permanently a victim. You blame everything and everyone for everything that ever happened to you. You can't achieve more than anything because you're a certain individual that came from a certain background or whatever it may be, and you are capped, and that's it. You might as well just give up and who cares? Dreams, what are those? Those are the things that you're lucky enough to have at night when you close your eyes. Everything else is like, whatever.
The sad thing is there are people who believe that and they don't.
And those are the kinds of people that are ripe for being manipulated, and it's unfortunate because it's just they're being fed a lie. It's not true.
Yeah, especially in America. You really do have a lot of things at hand to. Sorry, go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, we do. No, it's okay. I just want to catch up. It was an especially odd choice because it wasn't some filler episode in season 4 or something. They took this detour on the 3rd episode of the show. That's true. They did. They went pretty early with it. Hail Dojo, by the way. Thanks for coming in, man. And what's Comics for Life says, what stories would you suggest if you had to give an example of excellent storytelling?
Man.
Good question.
I mean,
Chris
largely...
early X-Men are perfect.
I think largely you kind of have your pick between of almost anything from 75 to 89, 90, 91 in terms of any.
Everything was perfect during that time.
Largely you do though. If you look between 75 to 90, 91, comics, movies, TV. There is no bigger chunk of time, that like a 15, 16-year period of time. No bigger chunk of time that you can say that, wow, take any other 15-year period at any other point in time that stacks up to it. And of course, there's some clunkers. Absolutely.
But that's not the rule. That's the...
But they're more the exception as opposed to the stuff that really has stood the test of time. Tremors is still great. You get the Tremors 5 or 6, and it turns into okay. You know,
a lot of people like Tremors.
Yeah.
Well, I do like the first Tremors.
Oh yeah.
Kevin Bacon,
yeah.
But here's the funny thing: I'm trying to think in my head during that time, and Tremors was the first, and even that. Because I was going to say Gremlins, and I'm like, no, Gremlins really isn't a bad. You know, I was trying to think of things. And it was tough.
No, like if you just even look back, I mean that period of time is so creatively strong that they're still trying to remake multiple things constantly from
that time frame.
Yeah.
Now there were like B movies. There were some B movie horror, and there was fantasy movies coming out in the 80s that were pretty terrible. But those things were barely seen. You know, they didn't reach the light of day very much, except on VHS. You know. That was pretty much it. So
Terminator 2 though is better than Terminator 1 though.
Well, and then if we get outside of like pop culture, I guess you could say, if we get outside of that, I mean, I absolutely love myths and legends and all that. Talk about storytelling that's solid and that has lasted throughout talking about thousands of years, and people still love these engrossing stories of characters and events, and coming up with explanations for things that you'd think like you would just think like, holy crap, this has to be real because they're so detailed, and it seems like it would have just been easier to figure out the real source of these things as opposed to concocting like a massive backstory.
hey self-promote. That's what Battle of the Celestials is all about.
Heck
We're going back to the past.
We are going back forever.
Yeah, we're going back before the flood and why everything is it is. You know, these myths and legends were true. We're just trying to give everyone the 100% truth of it all. So, but we only got one book so far. We're on number 2 right now.
Just one book. Just a scratch on the
1598 to 1605. Is he referring? I can't think of anything during that time. Is there something?
So. Well, you can look here, and he says Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth, you name it.
Yeah.
So, welcome, Bancroft. Thanks for coming by, man.
Absolutely.
And some person, by the way.
Absolutely.
Mo says, what if 45 Minutes at Tremors was Fred Ward flirting with Kevin Bacon? You're giving me Tremors, baby. Oh, man.
Wow.
I love it. Yeah,
I don't know what Mo could be digging at me or you on that one. So,
yeah.
I've heard
so
that
good
about Teen Titans, and I've never really given it a chance. But I've heard a lot of people that like X-Men say Teen Titans is really good. Like people who like X-Men usually like Teen Titans.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you guys have heard that too or agree with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had that crossover too. That was a really great crossover.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. There is big gaps though, and we're in this gap. But it's like you've said before, Pete. You think we're ready for another time where it's going to break open again?
Yeah, I think, and some people maybe they feel the opposite, but I think that we see a tremendous amount of negativity in certain ways and perspectives because of the fact that there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear there by the established powers that be, in terms of they're aware that they have some pretty stiff competition that they can't necessarily control. It's not a centralized company that they're up against. It's like guerrilla warfare in a creative way.
Definitely.
Oh, wow.
So you can't just kind of take one individual out and then, okay, we got that company. They're crushed. We bought them out. We crippled them, whatever it is. We took care of it. Instead, it's like, okay, well, there's 1,000 of these little guys running around, and they've got access to all the different tools you do. I mean, there's creators making incredible merch. Yeah, I can't even believe some of the stuff that we could do at Alterna with some of the things that we're making. Even having access to the printing that we have access to. That was thought that for decades, even the big companies, they can't go to print on newsprint, and no one would do that anymore.
Right.
So you get all these different things. People can make high quality clothes. They can make toys. They can make whatever they want to make that rivals sometimes even the quality of the bigger companies.
Yeah.
So
3D printing now, all that.
Yeah. There's so many tools at everyone's disposal. It's exciting, and so you can't really squash that. The best thing you could do is distract people from it. So if you distract them by either producing your own kind of outlandish insanity, or have any kind of other like a smear campaign or a negative kind of attention sort of campaign, then you can at least take attention away from people so they don't discover all the other stuff that's out there. So everyone else has to work that much harder to get that attention. But if and one day I think it will, if everybody kind of shifted focus away from that kind of stuff and started shifting focus to go towards what they want, as opposed to saying, I don't want this, and it's such a shame that it's like that. It's, and kind of be in a state of mourning as opposed to in a state of acceptance that, okay, that's the way it is. It'll never be as good as it was. Well, but look at all this other stuff that's growing.
Yeah, and I think that's a stage.
Getting to there.
Yeah, because you have to mourn it. There has to be a time of mourning. We came through one of the greatest creative eras of all time. So, of comics, of movies, of music. Look at music. I mean, it's the same way. We're losing music now. Music is so disjointed from culture. It's not even attached to it much anymore. And it's interesting to see how it's all going. But I just feel like once we get through that, I feel like there's going to be an explosion as well. It's kind of cool that we'll kind of see that. I think we're going to see the beginning of it, which is really cool. I want to be able to see that, even if I'm not a part of it. I probably will be. I want to be,
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel any better,
it's going to be great to see.
30 years ago, or roughly around this time, you get Image kind of taking off. Then 30 years before that, you get Marvel taking off. 30 years before that, you got DC taking off with Superman and Batman.
Right.
So it's like generationally, every 25 to 30 years, you see these kind of waves happening. So I think I think this one kind of started a couple of years ago, and I think we're seeing that slowly take hold. I think probably around 2030, we'll see it hit like a peak.
Wow.
And I think we're building towards that. Now there's a lot of things at play that it could happen sooner than that, or it can happen later than that, or unfortunately maybe not at all. But I don't think not at all is going to happen, just because it's too decentralized to say that there are not going to be people that make tremendous waves. And there's already kind of have been people that have for their own right made a tremendous waves in doing some great things for themselves and for others. So it's only a matter of time, but people got to keep on viewing this as like a war of attrition. And I say that phrase a lot, but people just got to go, I got to be in a position where I'm built to last. And it's not necessarily about rushing the journey.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah.
I get what you guys are saying, that this is going to be more of a need for this to happen. The only thing I am worried about is I feel like the generation under us is so different. Like, I don't know if they would like the things that we like. For instance, like, you got a generation of kids who didn't go outside and like play with each other. Like, kids don't even go out on the weekends. They stay at home and are on the internet.
I agree. But Murph, think about this though. I do think it's going to happen with people like that, because when you look at them, though, they have passion for things. It's just not the same passion we had. It's not for the same things.
Well, it's just a weird dynamic of never wanting to leave your house. I feel like as a kid, that's all I wanted to do. Even as a teenager, even in college, still had video games and stuff, but we go out and want to do stuff, where this generation doesn't do that. Like, kids don't want to get a car at 16. They're fine just chilling at their parents' house and being on the internet.
But see, fortunately enough, there's still a ton of them that do, and there's still a ton of them where it's the human spirit, man. You can't break it.
Right.
And the thing about that is, you're always going to have people that, and these are the ones who create positivity in the world, is the rebels. So you're always going to have these people that there's an established system of power telling you to live your life this way, and if you don't, that's bad. And there's always going to be people that are like, what did you just say to me? And then they go out there and then they do what they want to do with their life.
Yeah, don't tread on me.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those people now who maybe were on one direction in terms of living life a certain way, and then the pandemic hit, and a lot of that generation in a certain age group especially, that they're like, never again. We are not letting that happen.
Right.
You know, and the mindset is there, because even during the course of the pandemic, it was great in my area, at least, to see kids when they were walking home from school, taking off the masks, being together, horsing around, you know, hugging before the parents pick them up or whatever. You know, and we would see them walking home because we'd be going to the post office. So the bus would be dropping them off, and you see these kids, and you could see the fight that's there. And then even now, I still see kids that are riding around on bikes, and they're hanging out, and it's great, you know. And that's the thing that's going to be there. That's the thing that's always going to be there, that you can't take that away. And we're going to see
my youngest son,
a lot of that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. My youngest son is one of those the kids that likes to get out of the house, and he, for a while,
you have both. You have one that wants to get out of the house.
I do. I have one on each extreme, but the one that wants to get out of the house started working on the one that doesn't want to, and now that one is getting out of the house more. And it's not just about getting out of the house, but it's the fact that they're more social and they're having more interaction. They're living life a little more full. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Ethan, you know, my youngest, he oh man, I don't think he could stand himself if he had to be in his room very much playing games. He goes, Dad, I kind of want to quit playing games. He goes, I don't even care about it right now. And I was like, that's awesome. You know, I'm like, you'll come back to it. Yeah, you'll come back to it. There's stages of life where you want to play that stuff. Because even as an adult, I like to play games. But I said, there's other things, man. There's a whole lot to like. Get out there and enjoy and great time. And I think he is. He's doing like he used to do, where you'd want to run the road. You keep the roads hot, man. You're just out all the time. So it's a good time.
I hope you're right, and you do make some good points that there's just going to be there's a need, because of those with power make so much shitty content, that people just have all this money to where they want good content. And as long as we provide it, they'll find a way. You build it and they will come.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's up to us. And that's the thing that pisses me off sometimes, is I see people around the ages of like 30 to 50 sometimes feeling, or even saying, like, you know, who's going to do this? Who's going to carry on these things? Who's going to, you know, the traditions and the stuff that's good and this? I'm like, you friggin' so-and-so. You have to do it. Right. You're the cavalry.
Pete.
We're adults.
You try to keep the PG-13. Calm down on the so-and-so.
Oh, man.
You know, and it's like, stop looking around being like, who will do this? Who's gonna save the world? It's like, you're supposed to. You're the adult now. You're supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be keeping the stuff that you care about alive, so that it's there and intact for the next generation of people to come along, whether that's your kids or someone else's kids. The next generation that comes along then can discover that, because they're not born with the innate knowledge of that, the same way that we weren't born with the innate knowledge of these things. So it's really about all of us looking around and going, it's up to us. It's up to us. Take on the responsibility of that. And there's nothing to be scared of. If anything, I'm way more scared of leaving the responsibility to somebody else and a nameless, faceless individual who's usually going to be not having your best interests at heart. And they're the ones that are going to decide that this is what's best for you. Instead, take responsibility on that. And obviously, there's a bunch of people that do that, which is great. But anytime I see people that are feeling lost on that capacity, and I look at the person and I see the age and whatever it may be, and I'm thinking, like, why are you feeling that way? You're the one that's supposed to be doing this right now. It's your time right now for that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why our politics are so bad, is we've had generations of people not doing that. Like, you know what I mean? Of people not standing up, being like, you know, our politicians aren't doing what they should do. I need to do it, and I need to get into politics. Like, I don't think you see that a lot. I think that's what's kind of hurt.
I've seen some YouTube. I know we're getting way out, but
sure.
I've seen some YouTube channels where some young black guys were talking, and they're like looking at all this stuff, and they're into the politics, and I'm going, man, they're actually discussing this stuff. and they're talking about how things are just so out of whack. And it's great to see young people who are either fresh out of high school or maybe they're still in high school. I'm not sure, but they're actually taking on big topics, and it's great to see that, because I'm like, these guys need to challenge it. They're not just coming up young and dumb. They're actually trying to engage.
Well, I think our culture
that's a great thing to see.
Did believe so much into the news and our politicians that they did have our benefit. And I think it's gotten to the point, especially with COVID, where people are like, I don't know who to believe now. This just seems like lies all over the place.
Yeah.
And you're going to get people standing up from that, being like,
yeah. Well, I think keeping politics on everyone's mind in terms of that's how you change the world. I think that's a big part of the mindset of this kind of brainwashing and gaslighting that's taking place with a lot of the propaganda. Because instead of, I mean, look at comics and superheroes. These are empowerment fantasies. These are one individual can make a difference. Despite all odds, despite all adversity, they can still make a difference. Will they always win every fight? No. But it counts that they're even fighting it to begin with. And that's important. Now, if you tear that down and you debase it into a political structure, what happens is you're saying the only way anything that happens that ever matters is through a system of power and authority that's already established, that you can't do anything. And the only way that you can do anything is by taking your power and giving your power to somebody else and saying, now that person has my power and my vote and my authority granted to them, and they will go do what is best for me. Now you don't even live your own life. You don't even make your own choices because you've surrendered that to this other individual. So instead, we got to get back to the idea of you don't need to be politically driven. You need to be driven in terms of what kind of positive change do you want to see in the world? Well, how can you put that out there?
Yeah.
Because everybody could do something.
Right. Well, even in history, your greatest people are those that looked at everything and were like, hey, I'll follow someone, and they didn't have anyone to follow, and they're like, okay, I got to do it myself then. And that's what's happened.
Yeah.
Right. Bancroft says, kids growing up now have never experienced scheduled programming. What they consume is meme and algorithm based.
Oh, so,
it's interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, when we grew up, everyone
such a sterile world.
Stuff. You know what I mean? Everyone watched Saved by the Bell. It didn't.
Right. I caught Victoria watching YouTube the other day. I said, what are you watching? She said, woke morons getting destroyed. That's fantastic, man. I mean,
even the wording on that, right?
Good on her.
Woke, basically awake. You couldn't be more asleep. Funny. You couldn't be what being asleep means you're basically in a state of inactivity and you're in a dream state. So if you're woke, but everything about you is behaving in a sense that you have no control and power on your own life. Everything is based in the past. Something
not
happened
even an original thought
in the past. Sometimes not even directly to you, not even your own personal past. Sometimes it's hundreds of years ago, and you're saying that the hundreds of years ago thing now is the reason why you are in a position that you're in. If someone is to believe that, wow, what an immense amount of control and manipulation you can have over that individual to limit their growth and their prosperity. It's sad, absolutely sad. And it doesn't need to be that way. You can acknowledge what occurred in the past and go, look, never again. We're not doing that. And then you can go, we haven't been doing that for a very long time. So, what do you want to do positively to move forward with your life, and define that as opposed to being bogged down and living in the negatives, especially in a past that has nothing to even do with the life that you lived or anything along those lines. It's already bad enough if you're going to live your life based on all the negatives that occurred to you in your past, and then define yourself in that capacity, let alone to define yourself with the negatives that occurred hundreds of years ago or longer.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I agree with that.
Horrible.
And you're right, it is a way of control because they never look at it the flip side, being like, oh, look what your ancestors did that was good. Look,
it was tremendous. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Bancroft says kids are still watching and reading the same stuff, but it's all based on trends and word of mouth, not on whatever networks put up on TV. That's interesting. Yeah, because they're getting internet stuff, right? DNA is not destiny. Bancroft's descended from William the Conqueror, and he can't even conquer his addiction to ice cream. Leave it to Mo. Leave it to Mo.
The scary thing is we don't know Mo's real name, where he's from. You know, he might even be a time traveler. Like, we found out Crazy Mad's a djinn. So what could Mo be? Mo might be one of the gods. He could be Hercules.
You did not just say that. You just.
What if he's a celestial and that's why he's watching us? He knows what we're going to be writing about. We're going to unveil everything.
That's true. He wants us to make the little celestials. That's what he wants. Yeah. Well, Pete, you have anything else you'd like to tell us about your campaign here?
Well, we got 6 days left. It's both on Indiegogo and on the Alterna site. You can go to alternacomics.com/funding to check it out. You get 4 new comics for $9. If you're in the U.S., it's $6 shipping, and that's flat. So you get whatever you want. We don't.
Wow.
Was there supposed to be like a big explanation for that?
No.
Because even us, when it's to sell,
that's why.
Like, we're very like we almost feel, me and Derek feel bad. Like, we're like, man, we're asking people for a lot of money, even though it still is a, it's a collector's item and everything.
See, this is the difference, though. This is why I'm always banging the drum to get creators out there. Because you take advantage of the economy of scale. If you don't do that, and you don't take advantage of what it means to be creator-owned, so you don't take advantage of meaning that you essentially are creating merchandise, and you're out there promoting how you want to promote, what your vision is for this, and you're pounding the pavement day in, day out, like it really matters to you more than it matters to anyone else on the planet, which it should. It is not, when you're 100% creator-owned, it is not anyone else's responsibility to drag your book and yourself across the finish line. You got to go and you got to do that. You got to care about it and you got to communicate that. So I don't have a book on this campaign, technically speaking. I don't have a book on this campaign. I'm publishing these books, but I make like pennies on the dollar compared to what the creators could and would make because it's a for-profit kind of split. So the sky's the limit. Now, anyone that's out there that's doing this kind of thing, when you're putting your books out, if you're thinking, okay, I get a page rate, this and that, okay, there's security with that. But let's say you don't make any profit off of that. And then that book goes on to sell 5, 10, 20,000 copies. Now, you could have made probably 30 times the amount of money if you took a profit deal. Yeah. But you would have had to also make sure you really get out there and promote it, and you have all the drive to do so. So it really is about the creator understanding that this is a system in which you can really thrive. But if you sit back and you treat it like it's traditional publishing, you're going to struggle with that. Because traditional publishing, if you just go, the publisher will take care of all of it. What happens is eventually, one day it'll happen, and it's happened to hundreds of others with Alterna. It's 18 years with us now. But hundreds of creators have put books through us, and they've had that mentality despite my best efforts of trying to convince them, no, let's work together to promote your book. They would go, well, you're the publisher. You promote it. I make it. And I'm like, if that happens, what's going to happen to you one day is when you leave or get canceled, what happens is that now you can't really run around telling people about all the great stuff that you did at this publisher because you're not going to be known for doing that with that publisher. It's even some of the stuff that I see happen with a lot of the mainstream creators sometime where you'll be like, they're doing all these independent books. Why aren't they banging the drum and talking about how they did all this amazing stuff that you know and love? You know, they created that character. They worked on that book. They did that series. They did this, you know. And most of them don't want to talk about that. Right. It's like, it's important that you do that. And it's the same thing here with independent creators. If you don't run around promoting and being the face voice of your brand, of your book, of your characters, what happens is eventually no one associates those characters in that book with you. So I don't want it to become like let's say Blood Realm. I don't want it to become, Alterna Comics. That's their book. No, that's Rob Geronimo's book, published by Alterna Comics. And that's an important distinction.
Makes a lot of sense.
Like, that's a big reason why with King Cryptid, I have no problem talking about that character in that book incessantly if I need to. It means a lot to me. I absolutely love it. And I want people to be like, oh, yeah, that's Pete's book. And they still know I'm the publisher. But that's my book. It's my character.
Yeah.
So you have to bring that drive to it. You can't expect anybody else to do that for you. You can't expect the readers to come out and lift you up. You can't expect the publisher or the other creators working with you. You have to take that responsibility, and you have to be really excited about what it is that you're making. And then, lo and behold, for the most part, other people will reciprocate, and they'll be like, man, that person's so excited about what they're doing. I got to check it out.
Yeah.
That's contagious energy. That's exactly why I titled it this. So, because I think, Pete, you're one of the best guys that does it, man. You really do
a lot of energy.
Job. Well, yeah, you're excited about what you're actually creating.
Yeah,
it's fun to listen to.
It means so much to me, too, that people check out these books because they're great. These guys are working their butts off. But, I mean, I gotta tell you, though, I have over the years, I've had to crack the whip on a couple creators to be like, get out there, talk about your stuff. And it's unfortunate because sometimes we might end up parting ways. And then I'll see the creator, and I'm like, so now you know how to promote your book? Now all of a sudden you know how to get on. Before you couldn't get on the shows, and you didn't want to tweet about it, and all this other. But now that you're self-publishing again, you go and you do all that. It's like, why didn't you do that before? Because you're only going to be stronger when we can work together. If you're going to do it on your own, you're limiting yourself.
Right.
So it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. It's something that I want to be able to do a little more of. I feel like we haven't been on other shows or just getting out there and just, doing a little more. We've been limiting ourselves to just our show. And I'm like,
well, we don't have anything to sell right now. I think once we're working on our logo now to then have a website and sell on Amazon.
I agree you don't have things to sell, but I still think you're still promoting your work. You're still having everybody look at it. Check it out.
Yeah, promoting the YouTube.
Oh, sure. You guys are smart guys.
We do. Yeah.
You guys are good conversationalists. You guys are interesting. Get out there. And that's why I love having the comic book radio show that I do, where I can have people like yourselves, and you've been on, and have these conversations that aren't just about buy my book. It's just about what are you thinking about? What's your approach to creating, other various topics that arise during the course of the conversation. People get to know you. And you get out there in a different capacity other than just someone that's like, okay, well, it's that time of the year again where I'm asking you for money.
Right. Yeah. You got your little bell, you're ringing, and you got the bucket. And
yeah. The meme you always see with Bernie where it's again, I'm asking for your.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, I'm coming to you for money. What'd you do with the last amount of money we gave
no
you?
Doubt. But I agree. I think we need to have more of those conversations. In fact, I like this because tonight we got to talk about your campaign, but really we didn't focus fully on it. It was there in the background the whole time, but we had a great conversation over top of it.
And we talked about the 80s, the 90s, current day, politics, entertainment, in an hour and 44 minutes. That's crazy. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of topics.
Always a blast talking to you guys. Much
I love having you on, man. Yeah, it's great to have you. So next time we owe you the coveted, I don't know if I'd call it a jacket. It may not be a jacket.
No, he's only been here 2 times. The next time will be 3.
It's just decreased now, even further. Even 4 to 3.
We need to make it. You're on 10 times.
Pretty soon it'll be like, no, this is the first time ever coming on here. I don't know what you're talking about.
Thank you for the first time of checking out our show. We definitely have you anytime you'd like. It was a great.
Awesome. It's great meeting you guys. It's fantastic. We really hit it off. It's almost like we've done this several other times before.
It's so natural.
Awesome. It's just like time. COVID messed everything up. Reality isn't the,
Right. We can start over if we want to. It's our channel, right?
Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We just are getting started with the show.
Yeah.
We're an hour 44 in, but we're finally starting. Hope you guys are doing good.
Just started. Oh, my gosh.
I'll tell you, though, if we are in a simulation, someone's messing stuff up because there's no way my life has been a simulation. It's been too nuts for someone to...
That's exactly what they want you to think when you're in the simulation.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is that I don't think we're in a simulation because we never even have the conversation that we're in a simulation. You're never going to be self-aware that you're in a simulation if you are in a simulation.
Right.
So I've heard a lot of the arguments, and it sounds interesting, and I can see to a certain degree, and it's entertaining. But some people that are like, it's definitely like we're in a simulation, and I'm like, I really, if you're in a simulation, you would not know that you're in a simulation. You wouldn't even have the inkling, the thought of it.
Right.
It'd be so, yeah. But then maybe people will be like, that's the point of the simulation. What happens if now they're aware they're in a simulation? I'm like, okay, well, we can all just go friggin' insane together. How about that?
I do understand, though.
I like that.
Like, how many years from now to where you can literally have anybody in the world say whatever you want and it look real? Like, we're really close to that. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah.
You know
I think that's the thing.
They
I think a lot of that simulation talk right now really is kind of more like predictive programming, where they're like, let's just say that, put the idea in there because we're going to start introducing things that are going to make people question reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
I question reality every day. Actually, there's been 2 times where I really have questioned reality, and it was both times when I had a colonoscopy because you don't.
Is this really happening right now?
Wait, you guys gotta let me finish. It sounds.
I don't know, Murph. I think we're done with Murph. What do you think? I think we just kicked Murph. We're done with him. He's out.
No, I don't know why kicking
we
is
brought
the
you back,
funniest thing to me in the world, even when it's me. I don't know why it's hilarious, but the thing is,
man.
I've never been under for anything else. I've been very lucky, never broke anything, had to be in the hospital or anything like that. You fall asleep and you don't remember falling asleep, and when you wake up, you don't remember waking up. It's a crazy thing where you're just like sitting up talking to people. And you're in mid-conversation, and you're like, wait, I don't remember falling asleep, and how am I here right now? Like, it's a crazy feeling.
Did you hear what I said? It just means the drugs are good. That's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything else. Don't look deep into it.
No, but they definitely look deep into it, that's for sure.
Yeah, they look deep into it.
Best sleep of my life, though.
Journey to the center of Murph.
Oh, my gosh. I think we went to the depths, Murph. It might be time to move on.
Hey,
the depths of Murph.
I recommend colonoscopies. If you can get them, you clear out your system. Best sleep you're ever gonna get.
I should just kick you again. That's what
you could just have an enema.
Oh my God! It all sounds terrible.
This town needs an enema.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good note to end on, I guess. Right? I guess we can end the show here.
Colonoscopies? That's a good end?
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Got to the bottom of things tonight.
We really did. Oh man. Well, guys, if you're very interested in the Alterna Comics, I say go to Indiegogo and check out this campaign. A lot of great stuff they're offering there. I'm going to do it. So
good. Do yourself a favor. Reignite your love of good fictional storytelling. And go check out Alterna.
Would Alterna ever use Kickstarter, or are you against it because of stuff?
I used to use Kickstarter, and then around 2017, 2018, we were doing I think Alternaween, and then Indiegogo had kind of upped their game at that point with the featured perk stuff and the pictures and the add-ons, and I was like, wow. But Kickstarter at this point, I almost went to Kickstarter to kind of run simultaneous campaigns, and then they were running a fraudulent King Cryptid campaign last year by some dude in Hong Kong or whatever. And there was like a dozen or so campaigns from Indiegogo that were ported over. and they were really kind of slow. It took like 3 days maybe to act on it to get those taken down. And it made me question the whole vetting process that they're really, strictly always touting. I was like, these are very obviously, fraudulent. And like, what are you guys vetting exactly? So that was the reason why I didn't end up going to Kickstarter.
Is there anything you can do on your end to make sure those things don't happen? Because that's terrible.
The most that I ended up doing after that was putting like, I think like the Indiegogo logo in certain images and stuff like that. But Indiegogo doesn't want you to do that either. So it's kind of like, if it happens, it happens. But Kickstarter is still it's gonna need a couple more years maybe for me to feel comfortable again, maybe giving them a shot with that. But Fund My Comic, we did a campaign on there, and nice. I like that for the most part, but the shipping aspect of it is a little bit unwieldy. So if that gets sorted out, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I think that thing is new. It's got a lot of growing to do. So
yeah. Totally.
But it's great because I think it's a great way for us to branch out.
And yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, what Bancroft is saying with that, Yeah, definitely thinking about it. I might dip my toes into the water and do like these very, very just simplified second chance kind of campaign sort of things of just the new comics, that kind of a thing. So it would be like
That's
just the 4 comics and give that a try, or like just King Cryptid 1 through 4. I was thinking about maybe like 5 to 9 are out, maybe do like a Kickstarter thing of like offer 1 to 9 on there.
Right.
But I got to give it more of a I got to research it a bit more, see how it's going on there.
Yeah.
That's crazy what Dojo said.
Yeah, Dojo said Kickstarter told me if the fraudulent campaigns didn't violate the terms of service.
That's
so
nuts.
I reported them to the FTC and they started taking them down, which is great.
Yeah, everything is strange now.
Mm-hmm. Bancroft said he's going to run a Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and Fund My Comic in April and May.
Oh, there you go. So
I think that's the wave of the future. Mm-hmm. I think most people are doing that. They're going to go to that model of multiple sites. They're not just going to put it on one place.
Yeah, it's almost like selling at like different stores,
Yeah, right.
Because I've seen some people be like, "Oh, you just put it on the one, and then that's it," because you're splitting the audience. But you're not really splitting the audience. You're kind of more growing them in a way. You're giving them more options.
Right.
It'd be like saying that if you have your book in more than one store, that you're going to limit your audience, which everybody would be like, "What are you talking about?" So it's like the same kind of mentality here.
Yep. Interesting corporate strategy. We won't remove campaigns that infringe on your IP unless you do business with us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wave of the future is GoFundMo.
GoFundMo.
Too good. Oh, what would we be without Mo? I'm telling you.
We'd have a lot more self-confidence.
You got it. That is for sure.
He keeps the ego in check.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, man. I'm telling you, I'm roasted every week. Roasted. Charred.
It's just because you set up yourself. I told you, Derek, if you could say something and then someone could say, that's what she said, that's where you need to stop, because that's how they get you on the Bill and Frank homosexuality stuff. You're always saying, oh, I'm going to take that rod, and it's like, Derek, stop. Just stop.
Right.
You got to stop.
What good is confidence if no one's around to see it?
Ooh.
There you go.
That's true.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we're going to end. Guys, we made it to 250 subscribers tonight.
Oh, man, that's
How
crazy.
awesome is that?
That's awesome.
I feel like we should be higher than that, but, it's a long time coming. But this feels really good that we're finally getting over maybe a little hump. So let's keep that
because we were at 242 for a bit. So, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it stayed there for a while. So keep pushing us out there if you can, guys. Like and subscribe. Yep. And hopefully we'll keep this channel moving on. So thank you. We'll see you guys next week. Just to let you guys know before we before we get out of here, we may end up moving next week's stream. I'm not sure yet. So
maybe.
Just be ready. But anyway, thank you guys.
And that's why. So
right.
No, serious. I'm being serious. I've been asked to be in a movie. So
okay. Well, I hope to see it. That'll be great. So thank you guys. We'll see you next week. Pete, thank you for coming in, man. Hope the campaign does well.
Appreciate it. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys too.
Yes.
We will see you later.
Murph and Dirk and Dirk and Murph and Dirk and Dirk and